In a chaotic world where magic and martial arts exist side by side, there is a family known for its ultimate power, the Death Spirit Master family. Not only do they possess the ability to see and interact with souls, but they also have the ability to summon powerful spirit beasts from the ancient world. Within the Necromancer clan, there is a young heir named Leon von Marba. Known as the Young Master, he possesses exceptional intelligence and agility. However, the peace of the Necromancer clan is shattered when his father is executed by the Lord. To gain the power to avenge his father and save his clan, he is forced to make a pact with the demon MC Marba, the origin of the clan's renowned necromancy. Can Leon lead his clan out of danger? Can he avenge his father? Let's delve into the story to find out. The story begins with the raspy cries of besieged soldiers echoing in the air. The scene of the battlefield between humans and monsters shows their common purpose is to destroy the Pale Demon. A man once known as Nox von Reinhaber sees only a man with long white hair standing in the midst of the battlefield. Leon coldly stares at Nox, silently contemplating a last desperate attempt to restore peace to this land. Everything begins, like many great events, from a twist of fate. All the knights as well as the monsters simultaneously rush towards Nox to attack. That didn't scare him at all, but he still calmly stood in place. A knight shouts, urging the others to strike down the cursed monster. The other monsters and knights instantly respond, charging forward with renewed vigor. Leon looks towards Nox, recalling words spoken by his close friends and comrades who once fought alongside him. I remember it vividly, though I still can't fully grasp the meaning hidden behind Nox's handsome, emotionless face. Everyone knows we can't let that monster escape this battlefield. Watching the combined attack on Nox, Leon thinks to himself, but one thing I'm sure of. When those unfortunate words were uttered, I saw tears of pain rolling down his closed eyes. I only saw Nox, after responding to the crowd, bowed his head with an unclear expression, but I didn't see any tears yet. He leaps forward. Mid-air, Nox swings his sword down, attacking the giant horned monster. Just one slash. He cut the monster's body in half. Having finished, Nox gracefully lands beside them. He purses his lips, wiping away the grime on his face. Currently Nox is standing opposite Leon. The two looked at each other expressionlessly. I don't see anything like meeting old friends again. Leon speaks first, breaking the tense silence. At least tell me why you turned your back on us. Nox von Reinhaber, but Nox doesn't answer, standing in the bright sunlight. The blood on his face and his distinctive purple eyes make him resemble a judge tasked with judging the world. Leon puzzled and wondered what made him sign a contract with the devil. Why did you choose to betray all of us? Nox looks at him and chuckles. The way you speak reminds me of someone, but what's left to say at this point? Leon frowns, retorting, these questions mean nothing to you, but they do to me. Why did you abandon us? Nox dropped his smile and spoke with a gloomy face. If you want an answer from me and an end to all this suffering, then you have to take my life. You only have one choice. Nox's eyes lit up with murderous intent. Leon bowed his head and replied if that was really what he wanted, then I will happily oblige. With those words, Leon pulls out his book and summons countless undead. The undead rise, ugly and gruesome. Nox is no less formidable, swinging his sword, cutting down the undead that dare to block his path. The group of dead souls whose throats were cut pause slightly. Then they restore themselves. Leon is in the back controlling the dead souls. The group of dead souls, as if injected with chicken blood, quickly rushed forward. They attacked Nox regardless of everything, but he only needed to use his sword to stop them. Nox continued to slash forward without showing any signs of fatigue. But after a while, his eyes narrowed slightly. With a single sweep of his sword, Nox sent countless undead limbs flying. He thrust his sword down, pinning an unfortunate undead creature. Having finished, Nox coldly looked to the side. He calmly walked forward, step by step. Suddenly, Nox surged forward, his face beaming with praise. You've become much stronger. Leon's book kept turning the pages. A powerful darkness manifested. A giant magic circle appeared behind Leon. His vacant eyes responded, yes. A colossal armored undead creature appeared, summoned by Leon, to face the powerful foe. Nox, even more excited, charged without hesitation. Their clash produced a powerful shockwave. Thankfully, they were on a battlefield, or else everything would have been destroyed. Dust clouded the air, obscuring Leon's vision. When he opened his eyes, he was startled. Nox, at some point, had approached him and was poised to deliver a powerful blow. Leon stared in shock at the purple magical aura surrounding the sword before him. Fortunately, Leon quickly ordered his giant undead creature to use its sword as a shield. They faced each other. Leon declared, "If I must kill you now, and hear an explanation from one risen from the dead, then so be it." His eyes were resolute, showing no sign of deception. Looking at the fallen knights, he wondered why Nox von Reinhaber had turned his back on them all and left behind wounds that could never be erased. The gloomy rain seemed to mourn their fate. Leon still didn't understand why the person he once knew so well had chosen to hide from the world and embrace solitude. Leon angrily questioned him, "You know this duel won't end as you said unless one of us falls on this battlefield." About 10 feet above his neck was a sharp, ominous blade casting a shadow on his jet black hair. "There is a man on the stage with his neck tied up and about to be beheaded." The darkest and most terrifying darkness imaginable could engulf a human soul. Leon stared blankly at the gloomy sky. He held a knife, standing dazed in the indeterminate void, unable to think. The person on the platform in shackles bore some resemblance to him, only his face was matured and weathered by life's hardships. Someone asked, "How did it come to this? What did he do to deserve this humiliation?" Hearing the girl beside him, the man quickly warned, "Watch your mouth, or you'll be the next one up there. Remember my words." "Haven't you seen enough of their cruelty?" The girl still wanted to speak, but looking up, she saw a goat-bearded nobleman excitedly watching the spectacle below. The man sighed helplessly. "We can only remain silent and stay away from them." War now engulfed the continent. Ordinary people like us had no choice but to remain silent as if dead. Crows flew in the sky amidst the gray, gloomy atmosphere that pervaded everywhere. A time of chaos and suffering, as the flames of war began to consume the entire eastern continent. That deadly fire refused to die down, dragging even the prestigious Marba noble family into becoming the next victim of this hellish war. Leon's father's eyes drooped, devoid of emotion. It seemed he had foreseen his end. Then Leon's father gently closed his eyes, accepting his fate, and so, destiny delivered its heavy punishment. The strong do as they please, the weak only know how to steal to survive. Unlike the strong, the weak gamble their lives every day. Unlike the strong, the weak ultimately dance with death. Whether by this method or another, and the prime example is the current Marba family. One eye narrowed impatiently, the gate of hell, where the weak can only await death's release. This is the hellish picture this continent has become. The Lord of House Sylvester, the rival of House Marba, Earl Alan Sylvester, sat in the stands, sneering. He roared, "Let the show begin." The people below were talking and everyone was worried about the Marba family. Leon was still standing in the middle of the stage, stunned and not moving. Alan sneered, "What's the matter? Didn't you hear me say begin?" Leon's body froze. He felt a powerful force controlling him. His hands gently gripped the knife hilt. The worried people below grew restless. Leon didn't move. He remained where he was. Alan lost patience, his eyes gleaming. "What are you waiting for? Cut the rope, you brat." His legs seemed to move on their own, forward. Before him was the rope, deciding his father's life or death. Leon coldly swung the knife before the horrified eyes of countless people below. And to the Count Alan's excitement, Leon severed the rope. The guillotine fell, blood sprayed out. The brutal truth was that the sound of death was like a butcher's cleaver on a chopping block. Crimson drops splattered onto his pale face. Leon's eyes widened in shock, yet he showed no other expression. He seemed to have accepted reality. His vacant eyes, devoid of any light, showed Leon's utter despair. He looked at his blood-soaked hands and the weapon that had indirectly killed his father, making the dark scene even more real with the pungent smell of iron. The cruelty of fate was a burden this boy couldn't escape. Leon looked at his reflection in the pool of blood on the ground. Next to him his father's head rolled on the ground, removing Run von Marba from this world without severing all ties between my father and the mortal world. That's right, I am Leon von Marba, son of Rune von Marba. And I am the one who killed my father with these very hands. Leon's vacant eyes showed no emotion. A family head. You stand at the head of a noble family. True to that title, the head of the house is not only a noble but also one of the pillars of the nation. But as a great playwright once wrote, the head that wears a crown bears unease, and the burden of power should only belong to those strong enough to bear it. Now Leon sits in that position. Before him are his family's retainers. Hail the new head of House Marba, Leon von Marba. A discussion was underway. A disgruntled voice spoke out. House Sylvester is expanding its influence. They might invade Marba territory at any moment. Another agreed, urging, I suggest you fortify our defenses, Lord. Seeing his silence, another urged, My lord, I beg you to make a decision immediately. The others agreed, Yes, it's time for you to give us your answer, Lord. Leon closed his eyes and coldly said, No more discussion on this matter. I ask for your patience. I need time to reflect. He stood from his chair. The others were taken aback. They wanted to speak, but one said, My lord, this is urgent. This is a bad omen for the once glorious House Marba. Leon left the stuffy meeting room and walked down the hallway. He walked in thought. With my father's death, Lord Rune von Marba, Leon von Marba had ascended to the head of the Marba family at only 14 years old. The Marba family was once a powerful necromancer family, feared by others. But that reputation had faded with the passage of time. Walking down the hallway, he suddenly startled at the sight of a familiar portrait. Leon approached and gazed at the painting, whispering, Mother, Father. What would Father do in this situation? He knew no one would answer him. Leon decisively turned and left. He thought, I know I won't get an answer. You're dead and can't speak, and my parents can't guide me from the other side, but I still need guidance. How can I revive this family and restore it to its former glory? Leon went to a room. He raised his head and looked ahead. Another portrait appeared before Leon's eyes, Wellen von Marba. The founder of our family and also the only death spirit master on the entire continent at that time. Leon recalled what he had heard. Legend has it that the Marba family first rose to power when the first patriarch achieved glorious feats on the battlefield, but after that golden age, our bloodline gradually became unable to produce any true necromancers. That was also the reason why this family fell into decline. Leon sighed in frustration. He murmured to himself, in the end, I had to kill my own father. He opened the door and entered the room. A meticulously decorated study appeared. Leon walked to the desk in the middle of the room. He touched the book on the desk, recalling, in the annals of our family, our ancestor, Wellen von Marba, was a legendary figure, almost invincible, with a single wave of his hand. He was able to sweep away his enemies with a storm of death and summon legions of the dead in a never-ending quest. The entire eastern region was subdued under his chastisement in just 2 months. Legend has it that Wellen von Marba made a contract with the demon Marba and holds one of the continent's greatest mysteries. Is the secret technique of the dead spirit recorded in the forbidden book of the dead spirit. This gave him the power to rule the entire continent like an emperor. And this is the forbidden necromancy, a priceless treasure passed down from our ancestors, the very book that made the Marba family the only necromancer family on the entire continent. Leon looked at the book on the desk thoughtfully. He gently opened the book and flipped through it one by one, but only saw a blank sheet of paper without any writing. Suddenly, a raspy voice echoed, Listen to me, young new patriarch. Leon jumped. He looked around in confusion, asking, What is it? Leon wondered, a telepathic message right inside the patriarch's room, despite the anti-magic barrier outside. Leon carefully asked, May I ask your identity? The voice continued, Don't be afraid, young one, I am no threat to you or your family. Despite this, Leon didn't believe it, cautiously saying, How can I believe you? Suddenly, a magic formation pulled Leon in. When everything stopped, he slowly opened his eyes. Sensing something, he looked up in horror. A giant monster, somewhat resembling a lion, was staring at Leon. He wondered, "Where am I?" The other monster raised his eyebrows again, pointing at himself and wondering if your predecessor had forgotten to mention my existence. Leon cautiously told his predecessor he was talking about my father, Rune von Marbach. The monster nodded and replied yes, Rune is his name. He felt that the magical chain between him and me had been severed. It gritted its teeth and cursed, "Damn it, I've always worried that he was too kind to be the patriarch of a dark family." The monster sighed helplessly. "I should have known that he would soon succumb to such a tragic situation. Anyway, tell me, kid, who is the one who made the move that killed your father?" Leon's eyes were dull and he replied expressionlessly, "If you were asking about the person who killed my father, then it was me." Leon von Marbach, his withdrawn son. The atmosphere immediately became quiet. The monster, upon hearing this, released an oppressive aura. He growled angrily, "I will ask again. Did you kill my master?" The monster roared terrifyingly. Leon firmly replied, "Yes." He coldly replied again, "I am the one who killed my father." The monster's eyes burned red with fury. It roared angrily, a powerful wave of pressure launching an attack towards him. Leon stared ahead in astonishment. The images from that time suddenly appeared before his eyes, the memory of his blood-stained hands that he could never forget. There is also an image of his father's head falling down and lying in a pool of blood. Two images of themselves being so desperate that they no longer had emotions when witnessing the above scenes. After watching, the monster calmed down and spoke to Leon. "I see you were mind-controlled. The severed hand might be yours, but that doesn't mean you killed your father." Leon bowed his head, his face gloomy. "That's not true, you know it," he retorted. Seeing Leon's death-like appearance, the monster only sighed helplessly. It looked at Leon, carefully assessing him, ignoring his despair. The monster mused, "What I truly don't understand is the deep, dark aura I sense in him, and the darkness consuming everything. What has this child become?" The monster's eyes widened. How can a normal child contain such powerful magical energy? Around Leon, a dark, ominous aura swirled. Leon seemed to be standing on blood-red water. It felt like he had stepped over countless corpses to reach this position. His face was shrouded in shadow. This startled the monster. It was absurd. It almost couldn't believe it, thinking, this kid might surpass even his ancestor. This thought brought a mixture of amusement and pride to the monster. It seemed to be thinking how brilliant it was to have chosen such a worthy successor. Regaining its composure, the monster spoke, "Let me introduce myself. I am Marbach, one of the 72 demons of hell, who turned their back on the demonic realm and chose to live among humanity. The lifelong friend of Wellen von Marbach, and the originator of the necromantic arts, which later became the unique martial art of the Marbach family." Leon, having guessed somewhat, wasn't surprised. Calmly, he said, "I know of you through legends. When our ancestor founded the Marbach family, you were the one who taught him forbidden necromancy." Marbach nodded in confirmation. "Indeed, it was I, though now bound to the forbidden necromantic texts. I was once a powerful demon." Suddenly, Leon's face darkened. He said coldly, "Marbach, the black sorcerer, our ancestor often said that necromancy was deeply ingrained in our bloodline." Seeing Leon pause, Marbach patiently waited for him to continue. After a moment, Leon said, "But why? Did you ultimately abandon us?" Leon's eyes were filled with sharpness and resentment. Marbach asked, puzzled, "Abandoned you? What makes you think that?" Leon explained based on his assumptions. "Since our ancestor, Wellen, the Marbach family hasn't produced any necromancer of your caliber. If you didn't abandon us, why is that?" Marbach frowned, surprised by this reasoning. But facing Leon's serious expression, Marbach replied, "I'll make it clear. The reason why you and your family cannot control the true power of a necromancer is because you are too weak to be a suitable host." Leon was dubious. "A suitable host?" Marbach briefly explained, "That's right, none of you can match the absolute talent Wellen possessed. This is merely a sign of the decline of your bloodline." Leon fell silent, pondering. After a while, he nodded. I'll take your word for it. Marba was curious. You accept the truth rather quickly. Leon bowed his head dejectedly. Of course, the weak being defeated in war is an immutable law of the universe. Marba questioned, is that how you accept your father's death? Leon's face darkened. What's the difference? Honestly, his death wasn't anything special. However, Marba was curious when Leon stopped, not continuing. Leon said seriously, if you haven't completely abandoned our family, Marba, I have a request. Marba bared his teeth in a mocking smile. A request, not a chance. He said coldly, a request is an act of goodwill where only one side suffers, right? If you want to deal with a demon, call it a pact or a bargain. Leon accepted. Fine, then, a pact to gain necromantic power. Marba stared, appraising him. Leon asked again, are you capable of granting me that power? Marba turned his head arrogantly. A brat like you has no right to question my abilities. Besides, I see nothing in you worthy of my power. He asked coldly, do you truly believe you deserve that power? Leon replied calmly, I believe so. If I were truly useless and talentless, I would never have been allowed to converse with a noble demon such as yourself. It is said that just conversing with a demon is enough to drain a mortal's mana and plunge them into delusion. And finally lost his life when the demon left. If I am still standing up to this point, it can only be because I possess at least a little bit of potential. All your speculations are based on a clear logic that cannot be found without flaws. Marba nodded thoughtfully. This child is certainly no ordinary being. It seems he also possesses quite a bit of willpower. He mused. Pleased with Leon, Marba proactively said, as I said, any request to the devil, no need to let him finish speaking. Leon interrupted, needs to be done in the form of a contract, I still remember. As for me, I'm not foolish enough to believe I have anything to offer in return. Leon stated his thoughts frankly. Marba, first interrupted, then robbed of his words, froze, stunned for a long time. Then he laughed heartily and with relief. Marba praised, excellent, then let's make a pact. Young descendant of the necromancer bloodline. Leon seriously asked, what price will you require of me? Marba grinned wickedly. It excitedly replied, every aspect of you. Leon was slightly surprised. He remained silent for a moment. Then he also smiled slyly, saying, that's relieving to hear. I willingly offer my entire insignificant existence. Marba's eyes glowed red as he looked towards the source of the sound. On the other side, the Marba family was holding a crowded meeting. Kirchel stroked his chin and spoke, his voice carrying because everyone was aware, ladies and gentlemen. He declared, our current family head, I'm referring to Leon von Marba, of course. Using a little power to make a momentous decision that affects the entire family, have we all agreed? Kirchel deliberately steered the conversation with a somber tone. Seeing that others dared not speak up, he continued menacingly, within my capabilities as his uncle and closest relative to the current family head. Kirchel pointed directly at himself. I intend to take over all family matters in the near future. Now, I allow everyone to voice their opinions regarding my appointment as the family's steward. A member of his faction spoke up. We can't possibly object. Think about the alternative. He's just a pup who's not old enough. He said with disdain, we can't let a trifling, untrustworthy child make crucial decisions. Kirchel, seated in the presiding chair, listened to the flattery, inwardly believing that no one was more suitable than Leon's uncle, himself. From now on, Kirchel will control the family's affairs. He thought. Pullen tried to interrupt. Nevertheless, Sir Leon is the only direct heir of the previous family head. He emphasized, there's never been a precedent in history of violating the direct line of succession and appointing a family head. Kirchel's eyes widened. What good are precedents when our lineage could be wiped out? The Sylvester Brigands' army is marching towards us right now. He clasped his hands tightly on the table. I don't criticize your concern about succession. He gritted his teeth, adding, but I know you'll be favored by that naive family head. I, on the other hand, have to find a way to survive first. Pullen couldn't help but slam the table and shout, you've crossed the line. He stood up, criticizing, each of you was given a position here by the grace of the late family head. You should fight for this family until your last breath, not squabble like fools. He mused, even if the current family head hasn't established his own forces, I won't sit idly by and watch his uncle, Kirchel, usurp the inheritance. Remembering the late family head, Pullen silently prayed, guide me, Sir Rune, how can we possibly face this shameless vulture? Kirchel also stood up, a bold yet humorous suggestion. He lightly touched the presiding chair. Leon von Marba, our current family head, carries royal blood. Pullen, finding him verbose, asked directly, get to the point, what are you trying to say? Kirchel smirked, no matter how loyal you are, you lack discernment. It will only allow you to see that it's already over. His expression turned frantic, a stark contrast to before. Kirchel walked towards Pullen. With a condescending tone, Kirchel said, Pullen, my false friend. Accept my wise counsel with goodwill. As he spoke, Kirchel leaned down and touched Pullen's shoulder. His hand, like a magical force, oppressed his opponent. He actually thinks. I gathered everyone here today because I need to consider your opinion. At this point, Kirchel completely revealed his wicked true face. Pullen gritted his teeth. Damn it, it was all your plan. Kirchel directly cut him off. Watch your words, for your family's safety. He calmly said, we are all gathered here for a single purpose. To make a difficult decision, but the least damaging one for the family. His words echoed in the meeting room, silencing everyone. Kirchel didn't forget to threaten Pullen, don't obstruct our survival, my friend, I'm simply more astute. Pullen was devastated and thought to himself that he was in his clutches from the beginning. And forgive me, Sir Rune, please forgive this shameful subordinate who couldn't protect your legacy. On the other side, Marba stared at Leon. He remained unfazed, calmly facing him directly. Marba growled softly, all is well, except for one thing. A surge of energy emanated from him, creeping towards Leon. Marba unexpectedly admitted, with the change in the treaty's objective, the scope of my true power has been reduced. In his mind, he mused gently and naively, your rune father is my pack master, he possesses a far superior amount of mana. Leon truly had a very harmless appearance, he just stood there, allowing it to observe. Suddenly, his eyes flickered, he remembered, it seems any demon who makes a pact with a human must draw mana from the pack master to replenish themselves. He asked directly, what do you want me to do about that? Marba flicked his finger, there's only one thing you can do, but we must conserve your mana now. His body gradually became enveloped in a swirling vortex. Moments later, a round, fluffy, adorable magical beast appeared. Marba said casually, this form will be easier to maintain. Leon stroked his chin, I think it's quite reasonable. He remarked, you're cute enough to be a pet. Before he could finish, Marba's eyes widened, try calling me cute again, Packmaster, and I'll leave bite and scratch marks on your face. Do you understand? Leon languidly replied, yes, father, that's all. He turned to leave, his voice still slightly angry, good, if we've reached an agreement, then let's depart. Leon was bewildered, depart, where are we going? Marba replied, you want to gain the strength to confront your ancestor, right? Leon mumbled, I suppose so. He explained, if you have the chance to reach the peak like him, what better way than to follow in his footsteps? Leon couldn't argue, that's reasonable. Marba immediately created a teleportation portal, good, then we'll go to your ancestor's hidden temple. He didn't forget to warn him, this journey is dangerous, it could cost you your life. Leon's expression was indifferent, will you still accompany me? He asked concisely, why do you keep testing my resolve? He chuckled, covering his mouth slightly. Then, he swished his tail and left, I'll lead the way, if you think you can chase after the Packmaster, then follow me. Moments later, he appeared in the forest. Marba spoke, similarly, this forest could be a maze for those not under lineage. Your father said only the true heir can enter the secret temple. I think they overlooked some basic requirements, Leon questioned, overlooked, how so? Know that no one has yet fulfilled the first requirement to pass through this bone barrier. He said, I understand, that's enough evidence. Marba extended his hand. A black lightning bolt flashed. He said, "We can't delay any longer. I suggest we begin the trial." Moments later, Leon and Manhwa stood on the threshold, feeling the cold wind whistling past. Before them was a simple brick wall. Leon said, "Very good, this will be a test of my courage." Manhwa spoke again, however. The next moment, the two continued down the dark corridor. Leon noticed a fork in the path ahead. A wall lamp flared with blue fire. Several ferocious goblins appeared ahead. He also heard a noise beside him. Following his gaze, he saw a girl bound and gagged. Goblins surrounded her like trophies. Leon immediately took out the book and brought it with him. He looked at the text inside. He exclaimed, "So I bypassed the instructions and maximized the potential of the Necronomicon." But upon opening it, he was a little confused. The previously dark corridor suddenly lit up. The goblins also charged towards him. His eyes narrowed. He remembered Manhwa's words, "You must start by ending a living creature." He turned the pages one by one, until he finished reading and closed it. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The goblin, unafraid, lunged forward. Leon, barehanded, grabbed its blade. He coldly twisted the sword around. Using the sword itself, he finished off the monster. Unable to avoid it, the goblin fell. Back in the past, when Leon was a child in a graveyard, the figures of Manhwa and his son stood before a grave. His father spoke, "Listen carefully, Leon. In the Manhwa clan, what do you think we value most?" The answer is simple: we worship death itself. He continued, "Because we are a necromancer clan that controls the undead, we must revere death above all else." Leon pondered for a moment. Then, curiously, he asked, "But what does that mean, Father? How can we worship death?" His father turned, smiling, and replied, "You think necromancers, whether they want to or not, must be ruthless to gain more power as dark mages, isn't that so?" Rune, upon hearing this, turned and chuckled. He replied, "It seems you've studied our family history well. We are dark mages, feared by countless people on this continent. However, that doesn't mean we have to become heartless villains." Rune placed his hand on his shoulder and said, "That's why you must promise me one thing, no matter who you face on the battlefield, as long as you hold the power of life and death. Promise me you will grant them the most peaceful death possible," he said, kneeling with his son. He solemnly considered the words, his heart churning. "Father, you want me to keep this vow with all my enemies." Back to the present, Leon stood facing the goblins. His face was full of killing intent, his eyes focused and bright. The green light from the torch suddenly went out. Goblins surrounded him, but Leon stood there without a hint of panic. He shifted slightly. Leon thought to himself, "I must aim for the cervical vertebra with absolute precision. That's the best way to send my enemies away without causing them too much pain." Manhwa observed him with amusement. It seems this child has never trained with a sword, or if he has, it was insignificant, yet he can strike the cervical vertebra with absolute precision. Is this mere luck, or an innate talent? He mused, then grinned slyly. Soon enough, there will be an answer. Leon was in a dire situation. Leon reflected, "I took down one, but it was more luck than skill. Goblins are inherently cunning and treacherous." The goblins' faces were scowling and fierce. Leon tightened his grip on the sword hilt. He looked back and thought that in the darkness, it was difficult to determine the height. Not only that, your vision can fade from moment to moment. I remember when I defeated the first goblin, a torch went out. I'd better get used to the darkness as soon as I can. And then, instead of slashing through the enemy, he slowly backed away. I should focus on a direct thrust, aiming for a killing blow as precisely as possible, he thought. Then he lunged behind the goblin. Pointing the tip of his sword, he thrust with full concentration. Finally, the goblin screamed. Another torch was extinguished. Another quickly roared. They charged towards Leon and attacked. He calmly handled the situation. Quickly dodging their blades, he lowered his stance. Leon drew his dagger. He immediately slashed the goblin's neck. The flame on the next torch flickered out. He wiped the sweat from his chin, thinking his eyes were starting to adjust to the darkness. He could probably see well enough now. But unfortunately, after those clashes, his dagger was chipped. I guess I couldn't expect more from a ceremonial sword. He suddenly flinched at a roar. Another goblin, taking advantage of his distraction, leaped up and raised its blade towards him. Leon immediately threw a punch. His blow connected, his fingers grazed the goblin's cheek. A quick cut opened, blood quickly welling on its face. Marba watched in surprise. He dropped his weapon. Leon slid to the side, dodging the goblin's attack. His eyes shone with a serious intensity. This was enough to make Marba sweat. He reached for a discarded sword on the floor. His hand finally grasped it. Leon quickly lifted the sword and turned to face the creature. He stepped back to gain momentum. Then he lunged forward, the blade pointed straight. The sword pierced the goblin, blood spurted from its body. He continued, cleaving it in two. After the bloody corpse of the goblin collapsed, Leon showed no emotion. He turned and walked away. Step by step, he left the blood-soaked place. Until Leon reached the girl the goblins had kidnapped. She was gagged with rope, her hands bound. He slowly removed the rope from her mouth. Overwhelmed with gratitude, tears streamed down her face. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for saving me. I owe you so much." "I owe you so much," she began, but her eyes widened, her pupils constricting in shock. Leon had acted decisively, leaving the girl stunned. She didn't understand, gasping as the sword remained plunged into her chest, Leon's eyes as wary as they had been in battle. He withdrew the blood-soaked sword. Looking at the sword, he said, "I'm reminded of another piece of wisdom from my father. He spoke of creatures capable of mimicking humans, something he encountered on his cross-continental journey." Having said that, Leon stabbed the girl again, this time in the shoulder. This caused her to throw her head back and scream in agony. Finally, her claws extended, her fangs revealed, the sword was stained with her blood. Leon continued, "And he also told me never to forget that conversation, when we talked about how deceivers and those who betray trust don't deserve a peaceful death." Leon concluded, "They don't deserve a peaceful death, they should feel the fear and despair their victims felt." He suddenly became dangerous, eyes bright and full of warning. Leon growled, "And to achieve that I think you need a lesson in pain, right?" Immediately the girl's voice echoed throughout the cave. And the last torch, with its burning blue flame, sputtered and blew away in the wind. The luxurious tavern was bathed in a soft, shimmering light, reflecting off the large stage where scantily clad girls swayed to enchanting music. The fervent atmosphere intensified as, below, old Kirchel, embracing two alluring girls, raised a glass of fine wine, laughing boisterously. "Ha ha, finally, my time has come. Soon, this cursed family will be in my grasp." The girl in the red dress, coquettishly leaning close to him, whispered sweetly, "Certainly, sir, who wouldn't want a refined gentleman like you as the head of the family instead of being subservient to a milk-faced boy?" Beside her, the girl in the green dress, covering her mouth with a demure smile, chimed in, "Yes, yes, Sir Kirchel, I never thought you could use the Sylvesters to achieve this." "Could you say that again? Reaching the peak of power by making a deal with the enemy, only a true man could make such a move." Hearing this, the girl in red pressed closer, seemingly both praising and seducing him. In his drunken excitement, old Kirchel burst into laughter, raising his glass high. "Ha ha, such sweet talk, my dear, but I believe we must still bow to the Sylvesters for a short time." He took a sip of wine, his eyes cold. "In the end, it's better than letting that brat lead the entire family to destruction, Leon. Indeed, me taking power is the most logical choice. After all, who can deny that I've won this game perfectly?" Thinking of completely taking over the family, Kirchel laughed uncontrollably. Opposite him, a brown-haired man, embracing a beauty, drank wine while glancing at Kirchel, laughing heartily. He straightened slightly before the old man's arrogance. Curious, he asked, "What are you planning to do with that boy, Sir Kirchel?" "The family retainers are absolutely loyal to his father, meaning this boy might be more difficult to deal with than you think." Kirchel sneered contemptuously. With a mocking tone, I think we don't need to complicate things. His death will be justified after this. You know, the dead can't talk, and his son is no exception. A flash of madness appeared in his eyes. He grabbed the wine bottle and filled the brown-haired man's glass. The other man understood, raising his glass with a sinister smile. Excellent, Sir Kirchel. To my knowledge, the last time anyone heard anything from the dead was centuries ago, before the founder of the Marba family still possessed necromantic power. Congratulations to our rightful successor. Old Kirchel burst into laughter, clinking glasses forcefully before tilting his head back and draining the entire bottle. His booming laughter mingled with the boisterous atmosphere of the tavern where everyone was gleefully enjoying the victory feast. At the same time, elsewhere, in a luxurious room, Alan, the head of the Sylvester family, sat back in his chair, his sharp eyes fixed on the black-haired man standing beside him, his voice deep and authoritative. The plan to subdue the Marba family that I entrusted to you is proceeding smoothly. The black-haired subordinate nodded. Certainly, my lord. Kirchel von Marba is essentially just a pawn in our plan. We only need official approval from the royal family. Hearing this, Alan smirked slyly, letting out a cold humph. He muttered, "Those hopelessly stupid fools, how blind must they be to think I'd postpone the second war when the first one just ended?" As he spoke, he knocked over a chess piece on the board in front of him. The black-haired subordinate flattered without reservation. "Nothing would be possible without your admirable strategic vision, my lord." But Alan paid no attention to the empty praise. He glanced at the letter next to him, along with the portrait of old Kirchel. A cold smile appeared on his lips. This bastard Kirchel, who would have guessed the centuries-old history of the Marba family, would end like this at the hands of such a cheap traitor. Oh, what a delightful night! He waved his hand, giving an order, his eyes full of excitement. "Speed up the preparations immediately, you understand, right?" The two subordinates bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Alan continued to smile cunningly, crossing his arms across his chest, with a triumphant tone. "First the father, now the son. I can hardly wait to hear his heartbroken cries." After eliminating the fake monster, all the torches in the room suddenly went out. Darkness enveloped the room, without a single glimmer of light. Leon was forced to use his sword to feel his way across the ground, trying to find his way. "The torches are all out, now it's pitch black. Is this the end?" he muttered, his voice softly echoing in the silent space. Then, unexpectedly, all the torches blazed to life again. But this time, the flames were no longer an eerie green, but a warm, bright yellow, more normal. The light spread throughout the room, illuminating everything. Seeing this, Leon breathed a sigh of relief. Although he maintained a cool demeanor during the fight, it couldn't be said that he was completely without worry. Beside him, the small lion, Marba, lunged forward, striking Leon in the face with extreme excitement. "Amazing! I've never met a summoner as crazy as you in my entire life," Marba exclaimed excitedly. The impact was so strong that Leon lost his balance, falling directly into the pool of blood on the floor. But Marba didn't seem to care at all. He was so excited that his nostrils blew out 2 streams of smoke. "I'm sure that you have enough courage to survive in a place full of orcs as long as you keep your composure." As he spoke, he awkwardly put his 2 small hands on Leon's. Although not at all displeased by Marba's excessive friendliness, Leon still gently placed it, got on the ground and said, "Yes, I want to meet the orcs at any cost if possible. I've heard they despise humans more than any other race." Before Leon could finish, Marba quickly interrupted, "Forget that. Where did you get the idea that the last monster was a goblin's accomplice?" Leon pondered for a moment before replying. "That's simple. When all the torches were out but one light remained, clearly something was wrong. I realized that the torches here are a different color than what I've seen before. They were blue. I realized those were the shadows of the dead. Sure enough, each time I killed one, its torch went out. But even after I killed all the goblins, one torch remained lit. From that, I knew for sure there was another monster, and I wouldn't be able to proceed until it was completely destroyed." Leon's voice was incredibly calm, as if what he'd just done was a simple tactical game. That terrifying composure even surprised Marba, truly chilling. To think a 14-year-old could deduce so much in such a dire situation. When someone's life hangs in the balance, understanding the situation is difficult enough, let alone acting decisively without hesitation. Yet Leon did. Immediately, he acted independently and eliminated all enemies. Perhaps this boy possesses more potential than just a massive amount of mana. Or maybe he's hiding something truly special. Thinking this, Marba chuckled mischievously. Next, it looked at the Necronomicon floating in the air and instructed, "Now, continue with the next trial of Wellen von Marba." As soon as those words were spoken, the book automatically turned to a page and flew before Leon. Inside, mysterious words appeared. First, you must take the life of a living creature. Second, you must awaken those who have fallen. Reading this, Leon's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Undead. Marba playfully replied, "Correct, look at the goblins you killed." Hearing that, Leon looked. Leon was somewhat surprised by the sight before him. Marba's voice then echoed, "Then, channel mana into your eyes to enhance your vision." A wave of power emanated from the book like a gentle breeze. He continued to remind Leon, "You will see a thread on each of their bodies, leading to an unknown place." The dead mana lay scattered on the ground. As Marba said, strange blue threads appeared on each mana's body. Marba raised its left foot and said, in the necromancer's tongue, "This thread is called the death string." Leon looked at the book in his hand and read, "The string transcends the boundaries of death, connecting souls from this realm to the next." He replied, satisfied, "Correct." Marba touched the ethereal thread with its tiny foot. A necromancer separates the wandering souls from their bodies to revive them. Immediately afterward, the mana, seemingly dead, slowly rose stiffly, and with difficulty, he continued to explain, "Then, infuse new life into those bodies by combining the souls with the necromancer's own mana. They call these resurrected beings undead." A blue light shone from the mark on their foreheads. They slowly regained consciousness. His bloodshot eyes radiated a strangely gloomy aura. Marba held out his small hand and happily exclaimed, "Look, I'll show you the trick." A mana beast leaped and lunged at Leon, but he remained calmly seated, observing its every move. It pointed its sharp sword directly at Leon's face. Marba continued, "This process is called imprinting." Leon looked at him blankly, listening to Marba's explanation. "Of course, there are other ways to create undead minions, but this is the most effective method for beasts, and I'll show you the others later." Leon slowly stood up and replied, "I understand." Marba cheerfully commanded, "Now, try it yourself." Leon inquisitively asked, "Before I do that, can I ask you something that's been bothering me?" He casually replied, "What is it?" He stated firmly, "My predecessor once said it's harder to turn a human into an undead than a beast." Leon's expression suddenly darkened, his eyes becoming sinister and frightening, his voice laced with an eerie tone. "Do you think I've achieved the ability to turn a person into an undead?" Marba cheerfully placed a hand on his face and asked, "Then who is this unfortunate person?" Leon's face took on a cold and gloomy expression. He revealed the name, Kirchel von Marba. Leon smiled and said, "My only uncle." At the bar, expensive bottles of liquor were arranged on a table. Two men were laughing and talking merrily together, surrounded by beautiful and alluring women. The man on the right was Kirchel, Leon's uncle, his arm around a woman with porcelain skin. Opposite him was a middle-aged man, arm in arm with a woman, drinking. Kirchel set down his drink, his mocking voice rang out, "The late patriarch was an idiot. My life has been smooth sailing ever since he died." He wiped his mouth and continued, "Ah, the life of an opportunist, don't you agree?" The brown-haired man replied gravely, "Of course, now we just need to deal with his only heir." He extended his hand, asking, "Surely you feel less burdened now, Sir Kirchel?" He replied, "Killing a kid is no big deal." Unaware of the impending danger, Kirchel cheerfully shouted, "Now, let's raise our glasses and drink. Days like these are rare." Suddenly, the ceiling lamp shook violently, as if affected by an ethereal force. The light fixture's cord snapped in two. It crashed onto the table with a loud thud. Witnessing this, Kirchel anxiously asked, "What in the devil's name was that?" The woman beside him replied, "This palace is protected by magical artifacts. A normal strong wind couldn't shake the whole building." Kirchel sensed something amiss and looked in another direction. Then Kirchel put his finger to his lips, signaling the woman to be silent, quiet. He shouted, "No one left with a soul in Marba's territory is reckless enough to try to oppose me." A voice echoed from behind, causing Kirchel to turn around. "What makes you so confident to say that?" The owner of the voice was none other than Leon. He slowly walked in, with powerful lightning crackling behind him. Kirchel showed no fear. Instead, he sneered, "Good heavens, look who's arrived." Then he raised his hand, signaling the men in black behind him to prepare for battle, the oppressed new patriarch of our family. Leon's eyes were cast downwards. As he looked up, his eyes widened in slight surprise. "How kind of you to still recognize me, your patriarch, Leon von Marba." Kirchel maintained a calm demeanor, addressing Leon, "I see no reason for you to visit me in the dead of night without prior notice. What do you need?" Leon frankly replied, "Now that's a strange question. Does a lord of a manor need a reason to meet one of his retainers, when that retainer is a mere vassal? Shouldn't I inform you of my intentions for your convenience?" His words seemed to irritate Kirchel. He frowned and said, "I imagine other deserving lords wouldn't need such courtesies." Kirchel pointed at himself, his attitude aggressive, "But you and I both know you're far from deserving." He continued, "So, are you afraid your seat as patriarch will be stolen?" Kirchel smirked triumphantly. "It's too late, kid. Your old man isn't here to protect you anymore." Leon said nothing and stood motionless. Then he used his hand to lift a transparent curtain. A wave of dark air rushed in, creating a chilling sensation. Leon finally answered his question, "No, I know only I can protect myself." Kirchel's eyes gleamed. He yelled maniacally, So that's your newfound intelligence, coming here alone. How audacious. You're coming to me as if you have countless lives to waste." Leon repeated his words. "Audacious, uncle," he continued. "You're audacious to think I came here alone." Kirchel incomprehensibly asked, "What nonsense are you talking about?" As soon as he finished speaking, a black gas flowed in from somewhere, making Kirchel a bit surprised. He looked at those and thought to himself that it was strange that this was not ordinary magic but of the abyss. Next, Kirchel glanced downwards and muttered to himself, "I know this feeling," he then thought, "I sense a darkness deeper than any mortal." His eyes widened, and he thought again, "It's not necessarily impossible." Mana creatures appeared, their faces incredibly sinister and ferocious. Kirchel exclaimed, "Undead." Leon slowly approached him. His voice said, "Yes, they are zombies." The number of mana slowly increased. Kirchel was very frightened when he saw it. He hesitantly exclaimed, "But how could even my late brother be able to harness the power?" Leon calmly replied, "Isn't it obvious? The Marba family has once again become a necromancer family." He gritted his teeth, his heart filled with anger. Kirchel waved his hand forward and ordered the guards to take down those hideous monsters immediately. The soldiers wearing black clothes rushed up and quickly responded yes. The soldiers holding swords rushed up at a very fast speed. One of them pointed his sword at Leon's face, but he remained calm and still. A mana creature leaped. It used its hand to knock away the soldier's sword. The soldier was surprised by the monster's action. It knew how to fight back. That mana held the sword tightly in his hand while that guy was still in shock. Without a word, it slashed the soldier. That soldier's blood splashed out along with miserable screams. He fell before the eyes of Kirchel and the rest of the soldiers. He was stunned. Kirchel seemingly couldn't believe what he was witnessing. The other mana monsters began to attack the remaining guys quickly. Slashed straight at those guys forcefully. Kirchel, his face downcast, muttered, "Monsters." Kirchel was now extremely confused. He stood still in place, thinking something was wrong. Kirchel's eyes showed anxiety and fear. Sweat dripped from his brow. The thought flashed through his mind, "This is completely abnormal." Then he gathered dark energy into his hand. Kirchel thought to himself, "Unless I'm hallucinating, that boy is controlling necromancy." His eyes were ferocious, his expression fierce. Kirchel began to create a sphere of dark energy. Kirchel frowned, thinking, but how is this possible? The sphere grew larger, accumulating more dark energy. He gritted his teeth, staring at Leon with hatred and resentment. Kirchel roared in fury, "What have you done to turn our ancestors' power into a joke?" Leon calmly replied, "What's so strange about the head of the Manhwa family controlling spirits?" He exclaimed, "Ridiculous, necromancy is a lost art, buried in the sands of time." Leon listened with a blank stare. "Even your father couldn't use it when he was alive." Kirchel continued, "You expect me to believe that a useless brat like you is different? I won't tolerate this nonsense." Leon raised his hand and a blur of power flew out from his hand. Leon's voice said, "If you find it so unbelievable, then I have to prove it to you." His eyes widened, "But let me warn you, that won't be a wise choice." Dark air flew towards Leon's hand and the monster slowly approached Kirchel. It bent down and looked forward with red eyes. Then it took all its strength and rushed like the wind. Kirchel prepared to fight the monsters. Despite his fear, he charged forward with his magic sphere. Kirchel's eyes were fierce. He thrust the sphere forward and shouted, "Return to the abyss." The light emitted blinded the monsters. One of them was burned by the ball and fell to the ground. Kirchel smiled. He seemed to think the monsters were easy to deal with, but that was a subjective thought. The monster that was incinerated stood up steadily. Although half its face was corroded, its power seemed to have increased. Around its body radiates a powerful dark power. Red rays of light shined into the eyes on the eroded side of his face. The monster raised its head, opened its mouth and let out a loud roar, black smoke billowing from its face. Kirchel was slightly startled and tense at its display. He turned to call for help, shouting, "Soldiers, come quickly, someone kill this monster." Kirchel's eyes widened in horror. Now he realized that the guards had been killed long ago and lay scattered on the ground. He created a new magic sphere, exclaiming, "Damn it." Kirchel launched the magic sphere at the monster. He thought they would die, but unexpectedly, their power increased significantly. One of the monsters slashed at him. Kirchel thought irritably, though he hated to admit it, his magical abilities were only slightly better than a newbie's. With nowhere to run, he threatened Leon, "Treason against the gods will cost you dearly, do you hear me?" But Kirchel was thinking something else entirely. Not only that, but he was also hampered by the effects of alcohol. He could be in mortal danger. A monster leaped from above, sword drawn, preparing to attack Kirchel. He shouted, "This is no small matter." The sword moved in a straight line towards Kirchel. And finally, it pierced his body. Blood spurted out. Kirchel's face was one of shock. A trickle of blood ran down his lip. Kirchel cried out in pain and anger. Blood flowed from his body onto the ground. Kirchel tried to look at the magic sphere and saw dark energy radiating from it. The sphere slowly shattered before his eyes. Kirchel strained to look at Leon and asked, "How dare you turn your back on your own bloodline? You will never be forgiven." Leon walked towards him, each step light and deliberate. "I remember reading a historical treatise about this continent with my father." His face darkened. Leon continued, "It spoke of victors and vanquished, judged by the cold eye of history." Kirchel weakly asked, "Are you lecturing me, boy?" Leon calmly replied, "Even my apathy can't fully comprehend its true meaning." Kirchel was shocked by his words, "But, if there's one thing I learned from that book." Leon bluntly stated something that stunned him: forgiveness is the prerogative of the victor. He leaned close to Kirchel's face. "Uncle, you were once a victor." Leon, his expression unchanged, continued, "I presume that's what you did when you stabbed my father in the back and sought survival, but I'm afraid times have changed." Kirchel angrily shouted, "Shut your mouth." Leon raised his hand, a magical book appearing. "Uncle, no, Kirchel von Manhwa, I will not bid you farewell. I intend for you to suffer with every step you take." He looked up at the book and said, "I shall record this day as your defeat." Leon continued, "As punishment, I shall take away your desire to live another day." At his command, the monsters lunged at Kirchel like starving wolves. The sword was now inches from his face. Leon's voice boomed, in the name of the head of the Marba family. Kirchell's agonizing scream echoed. His hand slammed to the ground. Seeing Kirchell's corpse, Marba sighed contentedly. You truly are as mad as I suspected. Even a Buddhist monk would weep at this sight. He continued, how can a necromancy apprentice wield it with such skill on their first try? Watching you use necromancy, one would think you'd been manipulating spirits for a decade. Leon looked at Kirchell's blood-soaked corpse, contemplating for a long time. He suddenly exclaimed. His face turned cunning and sinister, I've just had a rather interesting idea. Marba touched his face and asked Leon, interesting or horrifying? Time passed quickly. On the other side, as usual, everyone was present for the meeting. A man in green spoke, another council meeting. He continued, does anyone know why Lord Kirchell summoned us? A blonde-haired man replied, who knows? I'm as clueless as you are. It seems the Lord's little errand boy in the council hasn't arrived yet. Let's wait a little longer. The Joker added, still, an emergency council meeting isn't something to trifle with. One person's hand suddenly trembled. Could it be news that the Sylvester family intends to break the peace treaty and attack while we're in disarray? The man in green reassured everyone, come now, don't let your paranoia cloud your judgment. I find it hard to believe they'd be so reckless as to break the agreement between our two great families. He went on to say that restarting the war would require official approval from His Majesty. The blonde replied that perhaps you're right. The blonde turned around to discuss with the rest of us, anyway, we should stand still and wait. All doubts will be cleared up when Mr. Kirchell becomes the head of our family. Footsteps echoed from afar. Leon proudly strode into the room, witnessed by the others. He walked with power and strength. Seeing this, everyone buzzed with whispers, what's going on? I thought this meeting was presided over by Lord Kirchell. Why is young Master Leon here? If he wants to challenge Lord Kirchell as the rightful heir, each of his steps seemed to amplify the tension, as if Kirchell himself cared about these formalities. They looked at him with puzzled expressions. Indeed, what is Leon doing here? He glanced at Kirchell's subordinates. Leon placed his hand on the armrest and asked, you expected to meet Uncle Kirchell instead of me. He continued, unfortunately, he won't be attending this meeting. Leon declared calmly, or rather, stated that his uncle could not attend. The man in green was astonished. Impossible, my lord, might I presume to ask for a clearer explanation? Leon calmly sat down and said, he's dead. This statement struck them like lightning. Dead? Leon admitted, yes, I did it myself. Clasping his hands together, he calmly said, if that answers your question, does anyone else on the council have any comments? The blonde-haired man and the man with the goatee's faces fell, looking distraught. The others on this side were equally astonished. The blonde-haired man slammed his hand on the table and shouted, if what you say is true, my lord, the family head. His attitude was aggressive and resolute, his voice tinged with indignation. He demanded a clearer explanation, not just brief statements. Leon remained impassive, listening to Kirchell's subordinates' complaints. One of them continued, how can you explain Elder Marba's death while we still mourn the passing of your predecessor? On this side, the man in green exclaimed, listen, you may be the family head, but you must at least tell us these things. Leon remained silent, his eyes flashing with a hint of killing intent, his expression cold. His voice rose, Kirchell von Marba was a traitor in our midst. The others were surprised. Leon continued, he not only betrayed my father but also gave vital information to our rival family, the Sylvesters. The blonde-haired man on this side was shocked. He also tried to usurp the headship of our family. Leon added, but what puzzles me is that despite the clear evidence, he deserved immediate execution. He crossed his arms and said, yet you seem to be defending him with all your hearts. The blonde-haired man still hadn't regained his composure. He thought, the summons for this council meeting was under Kirchell's name, yet he's not here. This proves he was assassinated. The man with the goatee was also annoyed by Leon's words. He thought, how stupid could he have been to be killed by a brat like this? Another man with brown hair sat nervously gnawing his nails. His thoughts raced. Now isn't the time to question Kirchell's presence. His face was pale, his eyes vacant. He thought, if the new family head, Leon, somehow assassinated Kirchel without any problems. The brown-haired man stood up and exclaimed, "Oh gods, I never suspected a thing." He continued vehemently, "The scoundrel, how dare he do such a thing?" But inwardly, he thought, perhaps he possesses some powerful magic. The blonde-haired man was stunned by the brown-haired man's reaction. He also stood up, echoing the sentiment, "We swear on our honor, how could we know what schemes that scoundrel was plotting?" Hearing their insincere words, Leon tapped his finger lightly on the table. His expression was dark, his voice eerily quiet. Leon raised his hand. "What you say may be true, but you are still guilty of a grave crime, the crime of failing to recognize the traitor within our family." The brown-haired man was startled, his face changing color. It confused us, it tricked us all." The man with the goatee finally spoke. "Yes, my lord, but that conclusion requires us to know if Lord Kirchel was truly a traitor. Do you have any evidence to support your claims?" He continued, "Is there any evidence that you didn't kill an innocent man?" Leon remained silent. He stood up. "You all reacted exactly as a more formidable entity predicted." The man in green was surprised. "Predicted, my lord, who?" Marba leaped onto his shoulder from behind, his face full of mischief. He chuckled, looking at the others. Leon looked down with murderous intent. He opened his spellbook. "Very well, you want proof. Allow me to demonstrate Kirchel von Marba's treachery." Black magic surged from below, shocking everyone. Leon said quietly, "The prodigal son of the Marba family." The people around all looked in his direction with eyes full of confusion. Leon continued, "Leon von Marba, calling for the souls of this world wandering here." A monster emerged from the black hole, carrying a sharp blade. Others appeared one after another, their eyes bloodshot, their faces sinister. Suddenly, wisps of dark smoke emanated from Leon's spellbook. The tense man with a shaved head uttered the incantation. The blond man added, "That's a necromancy spell. How did he do that?" A man's pained scream echoed as his body was controlled by an unseen force. The brown-haired man shrieked in horror. Could he have somehow learned our family's forgotten magic? The veins in his eyes bulged, showing his intense fear. Leon calmly held the book, addressing Kirchel von Marba. The man who had been controlled was now shambling like a corpse. "It was Kirchel. You will confess all your sins here, everything you can remember." The brown-haired man gasped. "Kirchel, how is that possible?" Leon said indifferently, "I'm tired of that question." The monsters were aggressive and ferocious. Leon's voice rang out, "What's so surprising? Necromancy is the root of the Marba family." The blond man yelled, "Everyone, run, save yourselves." The shaved-head man added, "Damn it." The man in green ran to Kirchel, asking, "What have you done, Yin?" Kirchel ignored him and continued walking. His head was gone, replaced by a long, bloody trail. Kirchel then collapsed, to the green-clad man's astonishment. A voice cried out from behind, "Help!" He turned to see the blond man dragging himself across the ground, begging, "Please, save me." The blond man trembled, his face pale. He was now at Leon's feet. He looked down with contempt. "I'll interrupt you, but this meeting isn't over yet." Magical energy continuously flowed into the book. "You must listen to everything your master says before he finishes." Kirchel walked towards the suffering blond man. He bowed his head, his face full of malice. Kirchel then opened his wide mouth, revealing sharp teeth. Leon said wearily, "I'll ask again, Kirchel von Marba." He continued, "Is there anyone here who doesn't know about your heinous crimes?" Kirchel replied in a raspy voice, "All those who served the late master of this family." The people behind him recoiled in fear. He continued, "All remained loyal to him until their last breath. No one here is unaware of my betrayal." Leon stated decisively, "So we're clear then." The blond man wept and pleaded, "Please, master, forgive me." The man in green fearfully said, "I confess my sins, my lord." The shaved-head man cried out, "Give us a chance to prove our loyalty." He looked behind him and saw a monster standing there. A horrifying scream echoed as they were attacked by the monsters, blood splattering everywhere. Leon exclaimed in surprise. He raised his hand. Then, With the power coursing through him, he said, I, Leon von Marba, declare before this council. He held the spellbook. His voice boomed, the dark magic of necromancy has returned to the Marba family. After subduing the elders, Leon stood there for a moment. He narrowed his eyes, sighing wearily. Sensing someone behind the wall, he loudly asked, Where can I find Mr. Pullen? Immediately, the person's legs trembled at being discovered. He peeked out from behind the curtain, trembling. He trembled and replied, Oh, I heard he was thrown into the dungeon below for inciting unrest. Leon turned around and said, Please lead the way. He solemnly replied, Yes, sir. Leon's long legs carried him forward. He approached the door, placed his hand on it, and then exclaimed, Ah! Leon glanced at everyone, but there was a face in the room, glaring at them threateningly. If you weren't comfortable, you could run away. The maid standing next to Leon was scared and fell to the ground. Leon said seriously, But remember that we don't know what happens next. The guards were equally terrified by Leon's words. For your own safety, I believe you'll make the right choice. Leon left the room. The others, finally relieved of the pressure, collapsed to the floor. In another mansion, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed as someone entered Alan's study. The subordinate stood before Alan. Master, he said. He presented a letter for you, sir. He took the letter, nodded, and said, I understand. Alan quickly opened the letter and began to read. His face tightened as he looked at the paper. After a cursory reading, Alan narrowed his eyes and smirked. Excellent, he said gleefully, it seems the royal family has turned their back on the Marba family. The subordinate sneered, naturally, sir, aside from their ancestors, they've done nothing to uphold their false reputation. He continued, their capital and manpower are a joke. Alan agreed, indeed, they're even weaker than in the previous generation. He placed the letter on the wooden desk. We must proceed with the plan. Alan chuckled, enjoying the thought of the Marba family bowing before him in the upcoming war with the nobles next month. Then, he fixed a chilling gaze on his subordinate. Are you capable of doing this? The subordinate clenched his fist. Absolutely, sir. Alan smiled cunningly. I think we can't lose. The subordinate raised an eyebrow, unless, somehow, a powerful high-ranking necromancer appears to lead the family out of its centuries-long decline. Reviving Lord Wellen von Marba from the netherworld, their defeat is sealed. Alan leaned back, smirking. He clasped his hands together and chuckled. So, this battle, we shall win. Scene change, the dungeons beneath the Marba family estate. Leon finally found Pullen. Upon seeing him, he shouted, Young master. Pullen's voice echoed through the corridor. Pullen bowed his head to the ground. Forgive this foolish servant, my lord. I plead for your forgiveness. I was blinded by Kirchhoff's dark ambition until he put you in danger. Leon glanced down at Pullen, a servant who deserves death. He remained silent. Leon watched his loyal servant prostrate himself, silently considering him one of the few remaining loyal vassals of the Marba family, and the first to openly oppose his uncle. He decided to recruit him at all costs. Leon bent down and helped Pullen up. You can stand now, Pullen. Leon looked at him. There's still much to do, and I need your help. Pullen, tears streaming down his face, looked at Leon in disbelief. Help, young master, but what can a fool like me possibly do? Leon looked at the flies buzzing around Pullen, then down at his hand which had just helped him up. He said softly, First, you need to clean yourself and meet me in the master's chamber. Leon turned and left. We'll discuss the details there. Pullen clasped his hands joyfully. I will always be loyal to you, my lord. Leon started to walk away. Pullen shouted, I, Pullen, will follow you until my last breath. When they entered, the sun was still shining. By the time they left the dungeons, the sky had turned orange. Leon waited for Pullen until the moon was high. He and Marba stood by the window, watching the sky. Marba gracefully leaped onto Leon's shoulder, using its pink tongue to lick his fur. Marba asked, What will you do next? Leon fell silent. He glanced at Marba. The choice is yours, false pact. A moment later, Pullen's voice echoed through the room in surprise. What, my lord." He was startled and tried to stop him, but I can't think of anything more dangerous than that. Contact the Sylvester family while impersonating Kirchhoff. Pullen tensed, his arms crossed. It would take great effort to perform such a difficult task. Leon picked up the Necronomicon. "I'll show you something interesting. This will work, won't it?" A shadowy figure, humanoid in shape, was summoned. Then, it shuddered, and human-like skin began to appear on the ghastly black form. It successfully transformed its appearance into Kirchhoff. He used cold eyes to look down at the pulley he had sprayed with some magical hard glue. Pullen was astonished, wondering how the Lord could be so indifferent to all this, and even more so, how he could create a necromantic subordinate from his uncle. Looking at Leon's cold, emotionless gaze, Pullen silently assessed that what he'd heard from other vassals was true. The man was incredibly powerful. Instantly, Pullen was overjoyed to tears. So the rumors were true. The Lord had mastered the power of a necromancer. Leon replied, "I think so." Pullen thought, his anger shaking him. During the golden age of the Marbach family, the Lord could achieve any ambition as a true necromancer, but now, how can heaven be so cruel to our family? Breaking out of his thoughts, Pullen coughed a few times, his voice strained. Pullen spoke up, normally giving orders to Kirchhoff in his mortal form might help you fool the Sylvester family for a while, but sooner or later they will find out. Pullen looked at the undead and stated the harsh truth: a necromancer cannot mimic a person's speech, writing, or behavior. To this, Leon calmly replied, "That's correct, unless this isn't a necromancer created from a Kirchhoff cadaver." Leon looked towards the undead, which was moving its limbs, and explained, "This is a type of undead created from a twin-soul creature that I found." The power of Kirchhoff appeared on the undead's hand. Leon continued, "This is a monster that can mimic the appearance, memories, and even abilities of a person." Seeing what was before him, Pullen unexpectedly took a few steps back. Leon's emerald green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Flashing back to a few days prior, after defeating the monsters, Leon's chipped blade was covered in blood, dripping onto the floor. The flame on the torch was extinguished by a gust of wind. Leon tiredly breathed in ragged gasps. He approached the unconscious body lying in the pool of blood. Sweat dripped from Leon's face. He asked, "Does this monster have a name?" Looking at the body that Leon had defeated, Marbach answered softly. He explained the monster in detail to Leon. "It has the power to copy part of someone's appearance, memories, and abilities." Marbach continued, "It was a hideous creature that liked to impersonate some missing adventurer." He raised his short finger and said, "It kills the original and even devours the victim's companions, using the memories it gained from the body it impersonated." Hearing this, Leon rubbed his chin and thought. Marbach watched his expression and laughed with amusement. Like father, like son, Wellen. Leon's necromantic power enveloped the girl's corpse. That power lifted the girl's body to Leon's eye level. Watching the girl's insane smile after being bathed in Leon's immense power, Marbach thought, "You're so kind to leave your closest subordinate to your precious descendant." The girl's corpse came to life, opening her wide emerald green eyes and looking at them both. Leon and Marbach stared at the girl before them. He looked down at Marbach and asked, "Should I be happy?" Marbach proudly replied, "Definitely." He warned Leon, "Be careful, this can only transform into someone the necromancer has met. Conversely, anyone with stronger magic than the caster cannot be recreated or impersonated by the twin soul." Marbach looked up at Leon and asked, "Do you agree, a false pact?" He continued, "No matter how talented you are, you're still young." Necromantic power surrounded the Necronomicon. Marbach warned, "Even if you trap your uncle's soul, it will decompose over time, and eventually, the soul will return to nothingness." Marbach said with sharp eyes, "I suggest you leave the Marbach family for a while, if only to find a solution to your problem." Leon quickly retorted, "No way." He firmly stated, "I will not betray my family." Remembering the image of the suffering people, Leon felt a pang of sadness. It's clear that on that day, somewhere without me, innocent people in the territory will be slaughtered when Sylvester attacks. Marbach sharply asked, "And you'll risk your life for them?" Leon affirmed, "I can die for them." Receiving the answer, Marbach fell silent for a moment, but why is someone like him so loyal to the family? What makes him do this? He looked behind him and thought, right now I think there are more urgent matters to attend to. The twin soul returned to its original form. Marba said, then go ahead and turn him into your undead, you'll find him useful, I swear. Beside him, Leon wondered, did you know about this? Marba wagged his tail and replied, yes, it's one of the undead soldiers Wellen used to control. He continued, you'll find him useful for your current situation, just keep an eye on him, he can be a bit hot-headed sometimes. The magic circle opened. Leon opened the Necronomicon, soul of the dead, heed the call of the family heir, Leon von Marba, I summon you back to the living. The twins are determined not to be easily conquered and are determined not to surrender. It aggressively approached Leon. Its eyes lit up. Marba, irritated, slammed Song Chong on the head, enough sleep, we have our first pact in centuries. Song Chong, flustered, pointed at himself, Marba, furious, gestured towards the cute, fleshy cushion, you idiot, at least change your form when you speak, or we won't understand a thing. Song Chong stroked his chin thoughtfully. Then it rejoiced, having come up with a brilliant idea. Song Chong touched the tips of its fingers together, forming a seal. It used its power to transform. Song Chong decided to transform into Leon, it clicked its tongue and glanced at Marba, empty barrel makes the loudest noise, it muttered, referring to the dirty cat. Provoked by Song Chong, Marba roared, what, do you want to die? Song Chong chuckled, pointing at Marba, I'm already dead, you stupid cat. It approached and pressed its face close to Leon's. Back to reality, the two were seated at the meeting table. Pullen offered a suggestion, if there's a way to undermine Kirchel, using the memories that the undead has, we can deceive Sylvester with that form. He looked at Leon with determination, truly, I assure you, Ruse will act according to my plan, I, Pullen, will personally handle this and do it well. Leon smiled contentedly, that's the answer I wanted to hear, Lord Pullen. Pullen tentatively spoke, if I may, sir, may I ask a question? He voiced his concern, Sylvester has received royal approval to attack the Marba clan again, why have you decided to stay in this dangerous situation, wouldn't escaping offer a higher chance of survival? Hearing this, Leon remembered Marba's words, I suggest you leave the Marba clan for a while, that way, you'll be safe. Leon narrowed his eyes, answering Pullen's question, it's my responsibility to protect the clan. Receiving this reply, Pullen was startled, concealing his joy, then, I, Pullen, will do my utmost, may I ask what grounds your decision for success rests on? Leon stroked his chin thoughtfully, actually, I've considered it for a while, Pullen curiously asked, does that mean you have a solution, sir? Leon replied, yes, but I can't think of the best course of action right now, but I do have an idea, although, I don't know how to be a good clan leader, and truthfully, I haven't deserved it from the start. Pullen's eyes widened, hearing Leon's still unclear answer, he said, so, that's why you're choosing to stall them until we have an answer to this problem. Leon's lips curled up in amusement. He hardened his tone, to achieve this, I will stop any enemy who dares attack us. Leon continued, as long as I don't repeat my father's mistakes and protect what we have, one day I will find the answer to the question of why I fight for this place, that's the only solution I can think of right now, he smiled softly at Pullen. Time passed quickly, in Leon's bedroom, Song Chong crossed its arms, assessing the clan's current situation, who would have thought the clan would be in such ruins. It looked at Leon, you have a lot to do, the pack-bringer Marba shouted angrily, you are the lord, how dare you speak so casually? Leon tilted his head, puzzled, but Marba doesn't seem to care about formalities, Marba was startled despite himself. Marba softened his tone, looking at Leon, pack-bringer, you usually don't care about formalities, right? Leon replied in surprise, I think so, how did you know? Marba jumped off the bed, I had a feeling, besides, Crow is capable. Leon watched Marba go, in other words, you can make him do a lot of things. Marba spoke seriously, Crow is a loyal servant and assassin who served your ancestors. Leon stroked his chin, I see, I thought Songchon's ability to transform into anyone would be very useful as an assassin. Songchon looked at Marba contemptuously. Crow's good at killing, so order him, pack bringer, unlike some sick cat. Marba angrily yelled, I'm not a cat, do you want me to send you back to the abyss? Ignoring the 2,000-year-old beings who had devolved into bickering children, Leon spoke seriously, then I need your abilities, Crow. Leon asked, can you handle my Uncle Kerchel? Crow, struggling to pull Marba off its head, replied, certainly, it'll be as easy as pie. Finally, Marba let go of Crow, jumping to the floor. It cursed, you idiot, it's as easy as catching a rabbit. Crow's hair was a mess, its hat fallen to the ground. Picking it up, it brushed it off. A rabbit, humans taste better when eaten by tigers. Leon said, whatever. Marba cried out, don't agree with this idiot, pack bringer. A knock echoed from outside. Leon returned to a serious expression, who is it? Pullen shouted, it's me, Pullen, Lord Clanhead. He opened the door and entered. Pullen presented a letter. I received a letter from Sylvester and rushed here to deliver it to you. Leon received the letter and opened it. The gist of its contents was: it has been some time since the Marbach clan shirked its duties to punish the Marbach clan, which is drowning in the blood, sweat, and tears of the people. The Sylvester family, under the leadership of Alan Sylvester, declares war on the Marbach family. If the Marbach family surrenders, everyone will ignore it and not pursue it anymore. However, if they refuse, the Sylvester family will raze the Marbach family to the ground within a month and restore order themselves. With the Emperor's permission, Earl Alan Sylvester and Marba both perched on Leon's shoulders to read the letter. He spoke, and the storm arrived. Leon said, we have 1 month. Marba sneered, what, are you scared? Marba turned and walked away. We have little precious time, we can retreat and counterattack later, gather our troops. Before he could finish, Leon interrupted, you misunderstand, I mean. Necromantic power manifested in Leon's palm. He decisively burned the letter, coldly stating, I'm not sure I have the patience to wait that long. Marba fumed, didn't I warn you, are you crazy, the enemy army numbers in the hundreds of thousands, this is completely different from your uncle's time. Leon glanced down at MC Marba, he seriously asked you will confront them regardless. Leon smirked, I think we'll be fine. Not only was he not afraid, he seemed even more unhinged. This time, I won't hold back, I'll just eliminate everything in sight. In the marketplace within the territory, idle citizens gossiped, have you heard they say Lord Kerchel disappeared last night? Of course, all these bad omens have been around since the old lord passed away. A white-haired man nervously said, I just hope the young master is all right. He seemed somewhat heartbroken. The young man must be devastated losing his loved one so soon, right after his father. The blond man added, I worry he isn't strong enough to overcome the challenges ahead. Another person lowered his voice in fear, you two are talking about your son, Rune, don't worry, I'm sure you'll be fine. This eased the white-haired man's worries, and he agreed, that's true, it seems the Sylvester family won't be causing trouble anytime soon. The blond man replied, I hope you're both right. Pullen appeared behind them, clearing his throat harshly. Pullen glared menacingly, do I need to remind you, careful what you say. Right behind Pullen was Leon himself. The three were startled at being discovered, bowing deeply, Sir Pullen, we were just gossiping in our free time. Leon calmly looked at the three, sincerely saying, and we all offer our deepest condolences for your loss and the Lord's, it's truly unfortunate. The blond man, fearfully bowing his head, said, losing my uncle during this difficult time, I can't imagine your pain. Leon interrupted, my lord, on the contrary, my uncle is still alive. Leon continued to say that he was actually bedridden due to illness. He thought it was the most appropriate thing to let people know that he was still alive. Leon smiled reassuringly, I think you don't need to worry so much about him. After saying that, Leon left. The three exchanged glances. He thought to himself, to deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your allies. As he walked, Leon ordered, Mr. Pullen, you will ensure the silence of the surviving vassals and any witnesses to this incident. Pullen immediately replied, as you command, my lord, you can count on me. Pullen curiously asked Leon, "What is your purpose in going to the city center, my lord? Just tell me, and I'll get you anything you need." Leon refused. "I thank you, but there's something I need to witness firsthand." Marba on Leon's shoulder exclaimed, "There it is." He looked at the building before them, saying, "I sense a large amount of magical energy inside that building." A large white building appeared before them. Leon carefully observed the building and reminded the person behind him, "Mr. Pullen, you can wait here until I return." Pullen was stunned. "What?" Pullen asked again, "Young master, are you sure you're going alone?" Leon replied firmly, "Yes, and I'm ordering you to seal off the entrance." Leon glared threateningly, "Don't let anyone enter or leave." Pullen anxiously watched Leon enter the building alone. Inside the house was chaos, furniture scattered everywhere. Blood splattered across the walls. In front of Leon's eyes were employees cleaning and carrying around the shop. A person with animal ears caught Leon's attention. He asked, "Marba, is that him?" He replied, "Correct." The beast man had white hair and a wound on his neck bandaged with white gauze. He had a muscular build and a scar on his stomach. A green aura surrounded him. Marba narrowed his eyes, thinking, "Wasting such talent is unacceptable. I think that family doesn't have any vassals with discerning eyes." Leon approached the beast man, requesting, "I need to talk to you for a moment." When the beast man was mentioned by name, he immediately knelt down and replied, "Forgive me, young master, I think there was a fight in our house last night because of some violent guests." He continued sincerely, "We would be very grateful if you could come back another time." From the next post, a girl with an attractive body wearing a white dress walked over. She strode forward, kicking him hard. She shouted, "Walter, are you talking to the young master like that?" After which, she looked at Leon with a remorseful expression. "I apologize, young master, we didn't intentionally have a lowly beast man greet you." She glanced at Walter. Not yet satisfied, she slapped Walter hard across the face and hissed, "You wretched, unpleasant thing, do you know who you're talking to?" She gestured towards Leon, coldly telling Walter, "Let me tell you, this is the master of Marba." Walter, seemingly unfazed by the pain, knelt down and apologized. "I'm sorry, madam, I'm still unfamiliar with this area, so I didn't know." Leon spoke, "That's right, and as I said, I need some of your time." She giggled nervously, "Why, I need enlightenment, young master, I have plenty of time." Leon hastily refused, "No, I have nothing to say to you." He looked towards Walter and said, "I have something to discuss with him." Leon thought to himself, based on the Marba demon, this beastman has enormous potential for growth. Looking at the beastman with crimson eyes, Leon judged that he would become a necessary vassal for the family. Walter remained silent. He widened his eyes, thinking, what did she just say? A purple light appeared on Leon's hand. Walter glanced at Leon. That young man is the head of the Marba family. The power of necromancy flared in Leon's hand. Walter stared in amazement as the power enveloped him. The necromantic power sought out Leon's wounds. Then it gradually absorbed inwards. Watching the power dissipate, Walter was astonished. "You healed me." Leon looked directly at Walter and asked again, "I'll ask one last time, can I talk to you?" The red-haired girl looked at Leon with a difficult expression. She said, "I sincerely apologize, young master, but this beastman is my slave." The red-haired girl smiled menacingly. "He doesn't have the right to spend time with you. If you have any questions, you can ask me." Leon narrowed his eyes at her, thinking, the mistress wasn't present when I dealt with him. He smirked. "I figured she wouldn't know anything, since all the witnesses are dead." Leon said cryptically to the red-haired girl, "Good, I have a few questions." Leon's voice became serious. "First, since when does Marba territory allow the ownership of slaves? And second..." Each of Leon's words struck a nerve. "Although it's been some time since my ancestors disappeared, why do you still call me by my childhood name?" Leon closed his eyes tightly. Could it be? She was furious, gnashing her teeth. A wave of necromantic power spread throughout the space. Even the subordinates cleaning had to freeze in place when they felt it. Leon opened his necromancy book. the power filling the space, you don't consider me the rightful master of the Manhwa family. Leon looked at the pact, but I won't accept any disrespect towards my ancestral pact. There will be no compromise on this, he's not the only one I'm concerned about. If you still have any slaves, you must release them. You have 10 minutes to comply, I won't give you another chance. The mistress, chastised, couldn't speak and could only reluctantly reply, yes, young master. Do you really think you're prepared for what's coming next? Seems like I forgot your position. Her eyes sharpened, a hint of smugness in her gaze as she looked at Leon. Leon didn't pay her any mind, he looked at Walter with concern and said, as long as you know, I've been called far worse. Walter was quite surprised by what was happening. He hesitantly asked Leon, Master, I don't know what I've done to deserve your kindness, I'm just a worthless slave. As Leon and Walter were talking, the mistress suddenly snapped her fingers with a sharp asterisk click. After the snap, many people armed with weapons appeared, surrounding them. The mistress ordered her men, Go, everyone, Lord Kirchhoff says he'll protect us. Hearing the command, the group charged forward with great spirit. Leon didn't pay them any attention. He glanced around, his hand casting magic. A stream flowed down. Leon Vaughn's spirits appear. They quickly dealt with the landlady's group. The mistress was shocked speechless at the sight. Leon then drew a sword from his coat. He held the sword towards the spirit and said, Could you give me your blade? As you can see, mine is broken. The spirit readily agreed. Receiving the new sword, Leon happily replied, Excellent, I'll return it when I'm done. With the sword in hand, Leon Vaughn dealt with the remaining troublemakers. Decisive sword strikes were unleashed. The mistress became increasingly shocked. She stammered, What is happening? How could that useless brat possess so much power? Walter's mind was racing. Leon Vaughn said to him, What have you done to deserve my kindness? You may see yourself as a worthless slave. But the truth is clear, at least now, you are a necessary and important asset to me. These words surprised Walter. His mind was full of questions. What is he saying? Why would the head of a family use a slave like me? I'm just a wanderer, drifting across different continents. Walter recalled the days of past suffering, abuse, and verbal torment. In the past, I couldn't understand why human children bullied me, or why they enjoyed seeing me suffer. I was just an innocent child. But now I understand. There was no justifiable reason for them to torment my life like this. Except that I was different from them. Because of that alone, I became the target of their jealousy. One day, I realized how naive I had been then. At first, I couldn't accept this truth. I was terrified that I was a monster, just like they said. Returning to the present, Leon had finished dealing with the mistress's men. He returned the sword to the spirit. The furious mistress confronted Leon. What are you doing? Do you think a few rebellions will make Lord Kirchhoff relinquish his position? A useless head of the family like you can't do anything to us, remember that. Leon showed no emotion, his eyes narrowed. Perhaps you know more than you let on. I don't intend to be the useless head of the family you claim I am, if you don't fight injustice. Soon I will become the worthy head of the Manhwa family, Leon Vaughn said, unleashing his magic. His magic-imbued hand pointed directly at the mistress. He delivered the final blow, and you will have no place on my estate. The mistress screamed in rage, You insolent scoundrel. After the scream, only a pool of blood remained on the ground. Having resolved the matter, Leon Vaughn turned. He looked at Walter. Walter was also staring intently at Leon Vaughn, his thoughts racing. He could be a murderer, with blood on his hands, but for some reason, I don't fear his presence. Why? But for some reason I'm not afraid of his presence, but why? Leon Vaughn smiled kindly and asked, Walter, would you like to help me? I need your help. Walter didn't answer immediately. He said, Forgive me, my lord, but I have a question before I pledge my allegiance. Having said that, Walter closed his eyes, and energy emanated from his body. Moments later, Walter's body transformed, revealing his true form. In this form Walter expressed that I am a child of the demon wolf tribe. My species has always been cursed even in the beast race. Should I continue to endure this contemptuous treatment for the rest of my life, how long will my tribe and I have to live wild like monsters? Leon Vio quickly gave his answer, never again, I assure you of that. This answer completely surprised Walter, his eyes widened in astonishment. Leon Vaughn continued, I don't know about the other difficulties or complex problems you face. As you said, your life has been plagued by unfounded prejudice. Let them see that from now on, that prejudice will never be forgiven. You will become a trusted vassal of the Marbaugh family. I promise you. After speaking, Leon Vaughn extended his hand, showing his sincere desire to have Walter. Walter's eyes welled up, Leon's voice echoed for everyone to hear. You will be considered a vassal of the Marbaugh family. I promise you. These words moved Walter, tears streamed down his face. Walter reached out towards Leon. Leon said to him, I'll take your silence as agreement. Walter happily replied, Yes, my lord, I am very grateful to serve you. At the Arkheim Imperial Palace. Inside the throne room, the king sat listening to a report on some matter. The king looked very tired and lifeless. Beside him was Louis, the empire's prince. It seemed the prince would handle the king's affairs. Louis spoke, Vassal Eldoras, what is the purpose of your request to see me? Eldoras, when asked, carefully replied, the Sylvester Count's family has sent a letter to your highness. Louis showed his displeasure. He responded, as the regent prince, I am busy with matters of the empire and its territories. Must I now concern myself with a petty count? My esteemed father would be furious about this. Eldoras, upon hearing this, explained fearfully, I dare not, your highness, my purpose in coming here is to deliver good news. Please, your highness, I beg your forgiveness, Louis responded with disdain, good news. Eldoras's heart pounded. He thought, the prince is currently the most powerful person in the empire, I mustn't anger him. Louis seemed pleased. He chuckled, indeed, you speak of the Marbaugh family. Eldoras could finally manage a smile, yes, your highness, the reason for your hatred for these past years, one of the three families of hell. May I suggest that you use this opportunity to support the Sylvester family, so that all your worries will completely disappear. Louis found this an intriguing idea. However, Louis analyzed calmly, but you forget that the Marbaugh family possesses the power of necromancers. War with them would be quite difficult. Eldoras understood Louis Vaughn's concerns. He analyzed, indeed, your highness, but, unless the Marbaugh family has someone powerful enough to inherit that power, while the Sylvester family's power has already been on par with Duke Marbaugh from before, Louis Vaughn was very pleased. He responded to Eldoras's request, you may continue with your game, this is a good time to eliminate those troublesome tomb robbers. Achieving his goal, Eldoras excitedly boasted, by the honor of the great Arkheim Empire, I will bring this mission to success. Having reported, Eldoras left. Louis Vaughn looked at his father with scheming eyes, truly grateful for your father's lenient laws. Father, I can finally remove the thorn in our eyes, a remnant of a bygone era. Rest assured, father. Father's legacy is in the right hands. And soon, that family will belong to me, for me to use as I please. At the Marbaugh family home, Leon was holding a meeting with family members and Walter. Pullen held a necklace and approached Walter, placing it around his neck. He instructed, ordinary people still distrust beastkin. Walter, from now on, I suggest you keep this artifact with you. The master and I naturally consider you the most loyal and respected vassal, but we can't stop the influence of public opinion. After speaking, Pullen hit Walter rather hard on the head. Then he added, from now on, we won't do anything to hinder the master, understand? Walter, dazed from the unexpected blow, still replied, yes, Mr. Pullen. Pullen was pleased with this attitude. He complimented Walter, good, you are indeed a wise young man. Leon, who had remained silent until now, spoke, if you two are finished, I'd like to talk to you about some important matters. Leon addressed each issue in turn. First, I need you two to make a more binding oath of loyalty than mere words. Furthermore, I ask you this, will you wholeheartedly pledge your loyalty to me, and to me alone? Pullen, upon hearing Leon's question, said resentfully, "Of course, my lord." He quickly ran to Leon, grabbing his hand and sobbing, "I, Pullen, swear here to dedicate my life to serving the Duke Marbaugh family until my last breath. I beg you, please give this lousy vassal a chance to swear, sir." Leon saw him performing such a feat and was helpless to say anything. Crow looked at this scene and felt funny, saying that the new owner was impressed. He subdued the old man with sheer willpower. Marbaugh added, "Indeed, domination and conquest are the tenets of the Marbaugh family." Walter also spoke up, "I feel the same, my lord." Leon was rendered speechless, sighing in admiration. "That's your motto, not mine," Walter said, confused. "Young master, who are you talking to?" Leon stopped joking. He repeated his words, "Before we begin in earnest, I propose a magical pact. You can refuse. I'll take that as a sign you don't intend to join my side." Walter asked, questioning, "A mana pact?" Crow, for clarity, demonstrated and explained. It created a template from the group's magical energy, binding the two in an unbreakable link, allowing them to share unspeakable secrets. Leon rose from his seat. He went before Walter and Pullen. Leon said, "If no one objects, let's begin." Leon channeled his magic. The pact appeared. It was presented before Walter and Pullen. Marbaugh closed his eyes. A moment later, he transformed into his adult form. Marbaugh declared, "As the ruling god of the Marbaugh family and the demon who gave your lineage its name, I will witness this pact. Let those who pledge fealty to my false pacts be bound in spirit under Marbaugh's rule. Hail! Behold, your master, the supreme lord of the necromancers, has appeared." Marbaugh was initiating the pact. Pullen and Walter were awestruck by the emanating energy. Leon intervened, instructing Marbaugh, "I think this is sufficient. These are my trusted vassals, treat them with respect." Marbaugh sighed, conceding, "Then I will consider them part of the pact. Know that the price of this pact is your souls, and any pact with the undead empire will not be forgiven." Pullen bowed, expressing his sincerity, "I will never commit such errors." Observing what transpired, Pullen felt a touch of unease. He wondered, is this the Marbaugh who made a pact with the first lord of the Marbaugh family? There was no other explanation for Leon's possession of necromancer powers. Walter similarly thought, "It's truly an overwhelmingly powerful mana energy. My kind is naturally attuned to mana, yet before him, I froze." This raises the question, what is the true conspiracy behind the new master, Leon, that compelled him to seek out this formidable dark sorcerer? The task was complete. Marbaugh reverted to his usual small form. Seeing him in this form, Walter exclaimed in astonishment, "A cute, chubby little cat." The words were barely out when Pullen rushed over and covered Walter's mouth, preventing him from speaking further. He could only make muffled sounds. Marbaugh didn't hear Walter clearly, but seeing Pullen's action, he glared at Walter and asked, "What did you just say about me?" Pullen chuckled nervously, replying evasively, "He's just surprised by your majestic appearance, my lord Marbaugh. Walter is probably too young to have witnessed such a sight before." Marbaugh, pleased, said confidently, "Is that so? Good, but don't pry into my presence in the mortal realm. Don't make any mistakes. We're at war. One mistake could cost us a life. My form only manifests before those I permit. From what I see, the nobles in your realm have little interest in your pet, Kirchel, don't they?" The name Kirchel sparked thoughts in Pullen and Walter. Walter recalled, "I remember the mistress received a letter. No, it was delivered to her for Kirchel." This gave Leon a new lead. Marbaugh, perched on Leon's shoulder, said, "That's our next lead." Leon asked Walter, "Where should we find that letter?" Walter replied honestly, "I don't know, my lord." Suddenly, Crow spoke, "I know where it is." After saying that, he took out a large penis and laughed. Everyone said, "What a bunch of idiots, did you forget to take the reward of the war?" The box was opened and inside there were many precious things. Marbaugh looked at the crow and the things in the ocean helplessly saying, "I should remember that you are an extremely greedy drunkard." It's because you destroyed the tavern and dealt with its owner. It seems Crow believes the remaining spoils of war are the victor's reward. Everyone approached the chest. Leon examined the contents closely. Indeed, there was a letter hidden among them. He picked up the letter and said, "I guess we have it, everyone." Marba said to Crow, "I guess even you can be useful once in a long while." Crow retorted, "Is that a compliment? It must be a compliment." Leon picked up the letter and read it aloud. "Attention, enemy of the Marba clan. We are the esteemed Sylvester clan, here to serve the king in initiating a noble war against your duchy. Despite your considerable strength as a marquis, you have failed in your duty to serve His Majesty, King Esteban von Archheim. You are granted 1 month. If you raise the white flag and surrender within this time, the declaration of war will be withdrawn, and the Marba clan will be absorbed into the Sylvester clan as punishment for your crimes. Otherwise, if you choose to resist, you will have to prove your innocence on the battlefield before Lord Alan Sylvester, Baron of the Sylvester clan." The letter was finished. Leon was slightly puzzled by the 1-month deadline. The demon Lord Marba beside him said, "Isn't that enough?" Leon narrowed his eyes and replied, "I have no problem with the time. However, I have a very interesting idea. Now that I have the ability to control the undead with my mind, perhaps some fun will happen eventually." Leon turned his gaze towards Crow. He told him, "Sir Crow, I believe I have a task for you." At the Sylvester clan's territory, in the meeting room, a close aide was reporting, "The declaration of war has been sent to the Marba clan, my lord." You should have seen Kirchhoff's face, clinging to his cane, so pathetic, I almost ended his misery right then and there. Lord Alan chuckled with amusement. That fool must be regretting everything he's done. But we must keep him alive for now. For all intents and purposes, he's a useful fool, and the Marba clan's strength is better left in his hands. Speaking of which, what about that kid, you know, the legitimate heir of the clan? The aide replied, "You mean Leon von Marba, my lord. There's been no notable news about him. I presume Kirchhoff killed the boy." This answer pleased Alan. The aide, somewhat confidently, continued, "Forgive my question, my lord, but why should we worry about a mere 14-year-old boy?" Before he could finish, Alan interrupted, "Answer me this. What is the greatest injustice a person can face?" Upon hearing this, the aide couldn't answer. Feeling ashamed, he confessed, "I wasn't educated, so I can't answer that, my lord." Alan responded, "It is facing overwhelmingly powerful enemies. When one has no chance of victory, no means of resistance, one can only helplessly watch one's world crumble. There is no greater pain." "And what do you think creates such injustice?" The aide fell silent, unable to answer. Alan continued, "Innate talent, that's what creates it, talent so powerful that one can only stand in awe." The aide, thinking Alan was referring to Leon, inquisitively asked, "What talent could that boy possibly possess, my lord?" Alan admonished his aide, "Don't be foolish, he carries the blood of Welland von Marba, nothing is impossible with that cursed bloodline. That's why we must prepare for every eventuality." The aide understood, he bowed his head, showing his comprehension. On Leon's side, suddenly there were 2 Leons. One said, "I must say, this is truly astonishing." The other Leon also found this very impressive. Real Leon analyzed, "The way you speak seems quite foreign to you in your original form, but now you're using my memories and imitating my speaking style with remarkable accuracy." The other Leon, presumably Crow transformed, looked at the demon Lord Marba and mocked him. "As you can see, I have more to offer than a meager amount of magical power, like some cat." The demon Lord Marba, naturally provoked, growled and yelled at Crow, "Shut up." Then he lunged at Crow and scratched him. Crow was scratched, but still smiled innocently. Marba didn't stop, he called Crow a pest. Walter, watching their playful banter, looked somewhat surprised. He asked Pullen, "Why is this place always so noisy, Mr. Pullen?" Pullen doesn't explain much, just say shut up, Mr. Walter, you'll live longer that way.